it's Janie. Welcome back to the Bookworms Buddy. It is the end of the month. I cannot even believe June is over and we're going into July now. It's just ridiculous how fast this year is going. Anyway, it is time for my June wrap-up. I was a part of Shannon's TBR Takedown, I think it was called. It was a week-long readathon, and there were challenges involved that went along with this, and that is how I picked my books. So I read 9 books. I attempted 10, but only got 9 of them read, and I'll explain that when I get further into this video. So I'm going to give you the first 5 books I read were for this readathon that Shannon hosted. The first book was a book that had been on your shelf for over a year, and I chose The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. I really enjoyed this book a lot. I gave it a 4-star rating. This man obviously dies, and he goes to heaven, and there are 5 different people in heaven that have a specific message for him. And they all kind of come together in the end of the story. It's very touching, very heartfelt, thoughtful. I really liked it. The next challenge was an unread sequel sitting on your shelf, and that for me was Smoke by Ellen Hopkins. This is the sequel to Burned, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to give you any details since it is a sequel, but it's a story, Patton's continued story, and I like the characters, and of course it's Ellen Hopkins. I really can't say anything bad about her stuff because she's such a great writer. There's dark, and there's happy, and there's sad, and there's triggers and that kind of stuff. But you can't help but feel something when you read her stuff. This one I rated 4 to 4.5 stars. The next challenge for this readathon was the first book in a series on your shelf, and I chose Private by Kate Bryan, and I liked it. I'm surprised that I liked it. This is a boarding school story. She goes to this boarding school, or a little bit more than she bargained for, and I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I have several of the books to the Private series, but I don't have the second one, and I was really kind of disappointed because I would have just picked it up and continued it, but I didn't have it, so yeah, I'll have to keep looking for that one. 3.5 stars for that. And the next challenge was an out of your comfort zone on your shelf, and I chose A Break with Charity. This is by Anne Rinaldi. This is dated back to the 1600s. It's historical, and it's witch story, and those are both out of my comfort zone. And it was kind of a mess. It was just okay. I rated it 2.5 stars, which was probably generous. You know, like I said, 1600s, Salem witch trials. There's a circle of girls who are pretty much controlling this town. They're teenage girls, and it's not realistic to me. So yeah, I read Give Me Death, I think it was, that she wrote, and I really liked that one. And that's why I decided to read this one, and it just didn't measure up. And then the final challenge was a book from your most recent book haul, and that was Stolen. I did not get this book completely read in time for that 1 week, but I did finish the book. A lot of people really enjoy this story. This is by Lucy Christopher, and I just found it kind of blah, kind of boring. Not a whole lot going on. This girl gets abducted by this guy who is pretty much a creeper her entire life, and this book is wrote in way of letters that she wrote to her captor. I didn't really enjoy it all that much. Again, 2.5 stars because there were some parts that were good, and yeah. Okay, so that was what I read for the TBR Takedown. I do have a video, an update video on that as I finished it. I will link to that in the description box. You guys can go watch that. The next book I read, I picked up Rumble by Ellen Hopkins. I really liked this book. This one is a boy or teenage boy in school, and he lost his brother to suicide because he was constantly taunted and ridiculed and bullied and all that stuff. And this book is really about this boy's faith, and he doesn't have faith. He's an atheist, and what he goes through and how he tries to connect. I was a little annoyed at first because of his ideas. you know, about, I have really strong faith, and his ideas about faith and God and all that stuff, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, which is probably the intent of the author, so we could get a feel for what he was thinking. And it just ended up being a fantastic read. I really enjoyed it a lot. I rated this book a 4.5 star, I think, and it's a really good read, so pick it up. The next book I read was for a bookathon in my group, and this is the Dublin Murder Squad. If you remember, I talked about In the Woods. It started out slow, but I ended up really liking the book. This one started out great, then just went downhill from there. I did finish the book, but it was just, I don't know. I'm not going to finish the series. There was not enough in the first book for me to want to keep reading the series. I mean, I read this one because I ended up liking the first one, but when I read this and it was just horrible, I didn't find enough in the first one to keep reading the series. This one was about Cassie, who was in the first book, and this was all about her. This was actually the first book I picked up in the series because I liked the cover, and it sounded great. She gets called to a crime scene. The victim looks like her, and I thought, wow, that would be fantastic, and it just fizzled out for me. I did not enjoy it at all. I think I gave it 2 stars for the parts that I did enjoy. Yeah. So there was a lot of us that didn't really enjoy it all that much. So I will not be continuing with the Dublin Murder Squad series. Disappointing. Oh, and this series is by Tana French. So, I mean, you know, pick it up and read it for yourself and decide if that's something that you like. I just found it relentless and just drawn out. It didn't have to be that many pages either. Anyway, the next book that I attempted to read was A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I think the biggest problem with me was reading this one and just it dragging out, and then this one just did not, again, witches, and it's just, witches are not my thing. And this also was a group read, or a buddy read in my group, and I could not even get into it. I was not even comprehending what I was reading, and I don't know if that was because I was just feeling drained by the time I finished the likeness. I don't know, but it felt complicated, and again, witches, and then apparently it's supposed to be some kind of a romance too, and it just did nothing interested me with this book. So yeah, I will not be probably picking that book up again, you know, because they're going to be reading the whole series. I just could not get into it. So, to give myself a break from 2 struggling books, I picked up the book Tides, and this is by Betsy Cornwell. Okay. This book had a really fun concept. You got books about mermaids. Well, this is a book about seal people. They're called Selkies. And I thought the concept was so interesting. I loved the cover of the book. I loved the plot. I just didn't get into it all that much. It was just okay. I think I rated this one, let's see, 2 stars. I rated this book because it was just okay. I needed something that had a little more excitement, a little more action, and yeah. So, the story itself is this brother and his adopted sister Lo go to this paradise place cabin of their grandparents, and he is going to be a marine biologist, and she's going there to, you know, just to go and visit, and they meet these people. So, well, he meets this girl, and what he thinks was saving her life, and the story goes on from there. Yeah. Okay. That was about it, and yeah, 2 stars. I don't know what else to say about it. And the last book that I read for the month was Not Fade Away by Loris Shamis and Peter Barton. This is kind of a memoir biography because the story is about Peter Barton, and he co-writes with his friend Lawrence Shamis. I think that's how you say his name, Shamis. So it was decent. This guy struggling with cancer. He had a full life. You know, he was married, had children, and then gets struck down with cancer, and this is pretty much his story and how he deals with it. And it gets into the topic of people dealing with pain in general, not having to be related to cancer. And it opens your eyes a little bit more, you know, to what these struggles are. You know, maybe you get behind a line of this person who's walking really slow, or somebody that can't get up the stairs, you know, very easy, and you get impatient and you're like, you know, can we move along? And books like this kind of open your eyes to think, oh, you know, there's a story there, you know, something's going on, they're suffering from something, there's a reason why they're walking so slow, they're not doing it to annoy us and that kind of stuff. So this kind of makes you understand issues of pain a little bit better. I rated this 3-star. I thought it was a decent book, and I think it was written okay. It was just kind of, you know, there. It wasn't like really in-depth kind of thing, but it was a memoir, and it was an easy, fluid read, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, this was pretty good. And that is my wrap-up for June. You can find all of my reviews written on my Goodreads. And yeah, if you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments below. We'll talk about it. Thanks, guys, for staying tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.